Hey everyone, welcome back to Workshop Wednesdays with Mentor Me Collective. My name is Raquel, and I'll be your MC for today. We'll be continuing our August theme into the Spatial-verse, exploring the transformative power of immersive technologies. For those of you who are new at Mentor Me Collective, we're a community dedicated to empowering individuals, especially first-gen techies, with the knowledge, skills, and tools they need to succeed in their tech careers, while also highlighting the positive impact technology can have on our lives and communities. So today we'll be delving into a really cool topic, an application of immersive tech called digital archiving with spatial computing. I sort of imagine preserving history, culture, and critical data in ways that are not only accurate, but also incredibly interactive and engaging. This is where spatial computing is revolutionizing how we archive and access information. So now let me introduce our exceptional speaker, Horacio Torrendell, the founder of Treeview and an XR development studio. So I'll bring him to the stage. Hello, Horacio. How's it going?
Hello, Raquel. How's it going?
Good.
All good.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm definitely looking forward to your talk. So just as that little icebreaker, if you could tell us a little more about yourself and how you got into, what you're doing right now.
For sure. So I've been running Treeview, which is a boutique development studio specialized in XR technologies, and we've been developing XR since 2016. So it's almost been 10 years now. The early days of the Oculus DK2, kind of the early virtual reality days, and how this technology has gone from a developer kit launched on Kickstarter to being one of the flagship products of companies like Apple, Meta, and Google. So it's been an exciting 10 years, and I feel like we're just getting started. So the next 10 years, I think, are going to be incredibly exciting in the space.
Yeah, 10 years is amazing. I feel like so much can happen in 10 years in tech. So I'm sure it's probably moved really fast and changed a lot. So I'm definitely excited for what happens in the next 10 years. Thank you for that. For the chat, we can get a little vibe check of where people are at with like XR, VR technologies. So we have a question in the chat, and if you guys want to respond, have any of you used the Apple Vision Pro before, or any other sort of like VR experience or technology? You can just share that in the StreamYard chat here we have. And while people respond, Horacio, you can take it away, and yeah, go ahead with your presentation.
Perfect. Do screen share.
Alrighty.
Perfect. Are we good there?
Oh, I think it just went away.
Yeah, we'll give it 1 second. There we go.
There we go. All right,
Okay.
Thank you.
For sure, Raquel. Thank you. Thanks for the intro. Okay, everyone. So a quick summary on this specific talk. So the idea is to go into kind of like a case study of a project that we recently finished, which I thought was a very powerful use case of spatial computing and the Vision Pro as a specific technology. So the idea is to kind of run through kind of the process of the ideation process of developing a Vision Pro application, the whole design process, concepting, developing, content creation, and then publishing. And I think this is a very unique case because I feel like the Vision Pro as a specific technology has opened up new potential ways of telling stories. And one of the most powerful stories that we can tell is kind of history and culture. And this case study was specific to an indigenous community, the people of Cree of Canada, and how we could tell their story and archive the knowledge of this important pillar of the history and the culture of today of Canada, and how that can be archived and shared with the world through this new technology. So a quick re-summary. I'm the founder of a company called Treeview. We are a development studio specialized in XR tech. We work primarily with enterprise customers, and we kind of work in business-related use cases, but once in a while we work on these kind of cultural and experiential knowledge or experiences, which are pretty interesting. So a quick story on the background of this project. So we established a relationship with Treaty 8 Polytechnic, which is an education center in Alberta, in Canada, and not the problem, but the challenge that we were trying to, or the mission that we were trying to do with this technology was to archive the culture of the history, the people, and the story of the First Nations people of Cree. So it's all about storytelling and knowledge archiving. This knowledge is with the elders, the language, and there's a big gap. One of the challenges that is happening now is that all of the knowledge that's with the elders is having challenges being translated and transmitted to the newer generations, especially in terms of languages, the way of life, the culinary the traditional food. So all of the different key pillars of culture of the people of Cree is starting to not transition to the new generation. And what we wanted to do with Treaty 8 Polytechnic was to archive that knowledge, archive that wisdom, archive that story in the latest digital format, which is spatial computing. So it's a pretty interesting case study, and the idea is to kind of go through the process that we had with this project, which I thought was pretty interesting. So the way that we're thinking was we needed to design something that was specific to spatial computing as not only a piece of hardware, but as an idea, as a new vision of this technology and how we can tell stories and how we can capture digital content and how we can share that content with this new medium. So it was about combining a new medium, which was spatial computing, with this idea of archiving knowledge. We didn't want to just do a video that you could watch. We wanted to have, like, a library was the best analogy that we wanted to have for this project. It was about storing and archiving knowledge that future generations could access to, and that knowledge is really in the elders of the people of Cree, and how we can capture that knowledge, that information, those stories, those ideas into a digital medium, which was spatial computing. So the way that this project started was first research with kind of working with Treaty 8 Polytechnic, and we did a process which is called kind of the design architecture. I wanted to show that. Give me 1 second. I can kind of show this here. So this is a design architecture. So a lot of things are going on here. We can dive into a bit of like the details of design. So this exercise kind of lays out what the actual application has. And this is not a video, so it's not a standalone experience. It's not an idle experience. It's actually an application. So we're building an app here. We're not building just a video. So the idea was to start thinking about what was kind of the key verticals of this application and what could it potentially store and have, and what story do we want to tell in this interactive application. Now, working with the people at Treaty 8, we were really thinking about language as one key pillar of the story of the people of Cree. They're actually a story, which is a fancy word of saying like the history, and the importance here that we're talking about past as history, but also history in terms of the present, and the future as well. So the story of Cree not being only part of the past of Canada, it's also a key part of their present and a key part of the future of Canada. We were also thinking about heritage, and this is also kind of the symbols of importance, of meaning in the traditions of the people of Cree. Gastronomy, which is kind of the food and everything has to do with the culinary experiences, and then medicines, which is a very important vertical and pillar of the tradition and the culture of Cree. So kind of we kind of figured out, okay, we're gonna dive into these 5 different pillars and doing research, with Treaty 8 Polytechnic, we started diving in and what does this actually mean and how does this actually work. And we were talking, we did a bit of research kind of on the people of Cree have 3 main languages. They're not dialects, or they're a mixture between dialects and languages, but they kind of share a similar vocabulary, but there are different languages. So we wanted to make sure that we were catering to the whole spectrum of the people of Cree, not just one specific tribe or region. And kind of the 3 main verticals was Woodland Cree, Dene, and Beaver, which is kind of the 3 main languages. And here we were really diving into the details on terms of what are the key vowels that are used, what are some basic words. So the idea of this app is it's not a language learner also, so the idea is it's not a Duolingo of Cree, but it is a way to immerse into the surface of what the phonetics of that sound, of the language, the vocabulary, the basic, how things sound. The analogy that we kind of talked about was everyone knows how French sounds, and everyone knows the basic of French, bonjour, merci. It's a universal knowledge, the basic phonetics and the basic words of that language. Spanish, same, everyone knows hola, gracias. Just those two basic words give, they have much more cultural exposure into the world than a very niche language like Korean. What we wanted to do is offer that level of understanding of sound and basic words. Tanse is one of the most known words in Canada, but not outside of Canada. So we were kind of thinking, how can we capture this into that experience? And we kind of went over basic words and basic sounds to be able to add into the experience. In terms of the story, here it was a bit more of a challenge in terms of the story, that because it's not what we were thinking about the people of Korea, it's their story. It's what they want to talk about, and their story that they want to tell. And the important piece here was the importance that they don't want us. The people of Korea don't want to talk about Korea as something of the past. That was kind of a very interesting insight. And the importance that Korea plays a very important role in today's society in Canada, and it also will play a very important role in the future of the history of Canada. So history is not about the past, it's a continuum, it's an always happening moment, and where does the people of Cree fit inside of this continuum of histories, the story that we were telling, that we wanted to tell. In terms of heritage, we went over, we're going with some research with the elders. Kind of the main verticals here was the importance of clothing and the colors of the clothing. The importance of the Omikiwap, which is the Cree teepee, and it represents what it represents, the idea of home, the idea of motherly care, and how the shapes and designs are designed for a nomadic lifestyle. So it's really interesting. And then also the importance of their ceremonies, that there's very different types of ceremonies in Cree tradition, and the importance of trade. In gastronomy, there were some very traditional dishes of the people of Cree, Bannock being the most famous one. We have some pemmican, which is a type of dried meat, the different ingredients, buffalo, fish. These were kind of key verticals and key symbols. And then medicine, all the different lists of key medicines that are very important and sacred for the people of Cree. So we kind of encapsulated all of this research and knowledge into a design architecture, which is kind of like not even wireframe, but like a layout of what an application will have. In this case, we're not designing a 2D application or a website. We are designing a fully immersive Vision Pro application. So that was the starting point where we said, okay, this is the vision of not how the product will look, but what the product will have. And after this, we continued the journey of the development process here, which the next step was to create a concept. The idea that we have behind what a product could potentially look like. And here I wanted to go over some concept. This is just concept decks here around the experience. So we are thinking of spatial computing is a very interesting. It's the umbrella term of augmented reality and virtual reality. So that's kind of what XR is also. Spatial computing and XR are kind of synonyms of this category of interacting with a digital world in a spatial context. So it's outside of screens. You're fully immersed both in your physical reality or in a fully virtual reality with digital content and experiences. So the importance here is that we wanted there to be a guide that welcomes you to this experience. And we also were thinking of how can we blend these two worlds, the fully immersive into the world of Cree, and also being able to experience it as an augmented reality experience. So we're kind of thinking of that transition, and Apple plays around here with kind of the transition between how much immersion you want and how little immersion you want. So this idea of being able to allow the user to control that level of immersion. We're also thinking of how you could potentially interact with this avatar, be able to talk with it and communicate with this world. We are thinking of the possibility of being able to really understand the different elements and cultural heritage pieces in this experience and how that would potentially look, mixing between fully immersive, like this first concept, or something fully augmented reality where I have a person of Cree, a guide in this space, We were thinking also in terms of sounds and how we could have like a language model and talk and have the avatar speak these different phonetic words. Being able to explore clothing and be able to see this person fully in your environment. How we could potentially have different types of guides, so you can actually choose your guide for this experience. It's not only one. Be able to, it could be diversity, and it could be different types of people that could welcome you into this experience. How we kind of envision the medicine experience, where there's a person that presents all of these different the symbol of the table, which is a very important symbol in Cree, and having these elements available to you. Being able to consume 2D experiences. There's a lot of material that's already available, kind of spread out around the world. How can we bring this into this experience? Apple Vision Pro is a very powerful medium to consume even 2D content, which is another use case that we're exploring with. And these were kind of like a first batch of ideas. And there was a cool idea also where we wanted Cree not to be only presented by the traditional Cree, but also by modern day Cree and the story that modern day people of Cree want to tell about their history and their present as well. So this idea of being able to be presented in the past and in the present. So this is a starting point in terms of how we can start thinking of this. And the concept, when we're designing concepts here, we're not trying to go into the super details, how it's going to look, but we do want to have an alignment on vision of how we kind of envision this different experiences. So this is a very powerful way of, in 2D and Figma, being able to communicate visually between all stakeholders. These are the ideas that we have. Now, when you describe them just with words, everyone kind of imagines them in a different way. And what's powerful of visual communication is being able to share that visuals. And we all know that this is a composition, but we kind of envision, okay, it's in this direction. It's kind of like an arrow in a direction of design. So that was the next steps in the process of designing an Apple Vision Pro experience. So we started with the design architecture. We went on to concepting and kind of sharing ideas, and then finally we actually did an actual design, a UI UX design. This would be the technical term of actually doing the product design. And here is where we actually go into the details on how it's going to look, how it's going to work, what buttons are available, what content is available. And let me share kind of the wrap up of all of that content is an actual deck. So these are kind of the product decks which actually are much more detailed in terms of like defining the scope. So in XR and every type of software development, defining scope is always a challenge, since we're translating ideas to code and content. And this document, which is kind of like a product deck, defines exactly the scope of what it's going to have. So kind of going over this at a high level, kind of the vision of this product, which is kind of the 3D story, was an immersive experience designed to share Cree culture with the world through an interactive, immersive experience with the latest consumer technology, which is spatial computing. Kind of like the tone of what we were thinking, the feeling that we wanted to accomplish with this experience, being able to jump into this world. A deeper dive into what the content will have. This is an evolution of the original design architecture. It's going to have a start experience, guide selection, a main menu. You're going to have different topics, different chapters inside of the app, and what content is actually going to be available inside of all of these different experiences is kind of defined here. So this is the definition of the product that's actually going to be built. How is the start screen going to look and feel and work? And kind of here's kind of the design. We ended up going with the panel experience, but this is not an image. This would be a portal into this world. So that was kind of the concept that we ended up defining was Apple. We were following Apple's design guidelines, which they use this idea of windows. Spatial windows is a concept. So we wanted to maintain that idea, but instead of being a screen, what it is a portal into this world. So you can actually see differently into that space, and you can actually peek your head inside of that environment, and it's this portal into the universe, into the world of Cree. We wanted to have a menu, a guide selection where we would have different guides. This idea of being able to maintain the traditional or the modern, and the idea here was not only that we're changing the avatar, but the whole environment changes. So the idea is that this story can be told by the elders and the knowledge of the past, or the story of Cree can also be told by the present day people of Cree. So this idea of having both types of stories, and that opens up two verticals of completely different experiences. Then we also wanted to share this idea of fully immersive or panel mode. So here we have an example of how the augmented reality version would look, and then we also add a touch of a button, and kind of this immersive mode would translate into a fully immersive virtual reality experience where you would be able to interact with the same content, but fully immersed in VR, which is kind of one of the powers of the Vision Pro, is this idea of being able to see your environment and be present in physical reality, or tune out and go into fully simulated worlds. Then we had this idea of the main menu. We went also with a design language of Apple, and the idea of the guide welcomes you, and you can select 5 different topics or verticals of the people of Cree's knowledge, and we could dive into each election of the user. So we can kind of see how, when we go into the language module, the idea here is that you select which language you want. You can select the Woodland Cree, Dene, or Beaver, and the user and you would have access to a selection of words and of vowels as well. Then we have the idea of medicine, where you would be presented a table, and you would be able to select different elements of these medical plans. You would be able to see a pop-up with more information here, and this would not be an image; it would be the actual 3D model of the plant. And here you would be able to actually grab it. Kind of the magic of also is to be able to break the idea of screen and reality. So here you would actually be able to grab these elements and bring them into your space, which I thought was a very powerful concept. Then we also had the section on gastronomy, where we would also have this idea of the table presenting these different elements to the user. You would be able to select any item, see a 3D model of that space, be able to potentially watch a video. So we would be able to embed any types of videos here. And then heritage, being able to have, we also maintain the theme of the table, be able to select different topics here and then dive in. You would be able to select elements like the teepee, be able to learn more about the design, how it looks, how it works. You would be able to bring that into your physical space, which is a very powerful experience as well. Be able to learn more about the ceremonies, for example, the Sundance. And this is the library. So the idea here is that we're encapsulating all of this knowledge, bringing all this knowledge into one place where you would be able to watch videos. And these potentially could be spatial videos as well. So we can, it can be multimedia and type of experience that we want. The clothing, being able to learn about the different materials used in the clothing, be able to bring that avatar into your physical space, see him at the same way that you would look at a person. This person would recognize your presence in the experience. You would be able to move around. You would maintain eyesight and attention to the user, which is very powerful. Being able to tell the story. And that was kind of a summary of the product deck, which is kind of the definition of, okay, this is what we're going to build, which was kind of the next phase after we did the initial research and the design architecture, what the app would potentially have, some initial ideas and concepts of in which direction we would be building, and the actual UI UX design, where we actually design the interfaces, how it's going to work, how it's going to look, how it's going to, all of these, the definition of the product in a UI UX design. And then the next step was, before we actually start building all of this, that there's a lot to build, we wanted to mitigate technical risks to make sure that everything that we wanted to build out was actually technically feasible. So instead of just building, we wanted to mitigate these risks. And two of the main risks were, one was this effect of the portal. So you can see here kind of that we ran a technical test here, where you actually see this effect of the portal. So we wanted to make a portal into this world where you could actually look from any angle and see this universe in space, and you can be walking. This is in Unity. And I'm not sure if in this video we can actually see how you could pop in. But in the app, you can actually bring your head in and actually walk into the space. So that was one of the main, we did many different prototypes just to confirm technical feasibility. We also started defining and designing and testing how different components would work and feel. For example, here we have kind of the intro. Let me bring this down a bit. How we envision the intro of this experience, and how the start menu, so this idea of being able to break reality with this digital experience, you would be able to, and how we would introduce the idea of the portal, and then you would open up a portal. So this idea of being able to prototype how the actual design of the portal would work, which is a pretty interesting prototype. And then we did a bunch of other tests, technical tests on the device, make sure that the shaders work, make sure that we could render large amounts of content on the Vision Pro. So it's like all the prep work, just to make sure that when we actually start to build, we know that we can deliver. And if there's going to be any challenges, we kind of know of those challenges at the start of the project, not towards the end of the project. Then the heavy lifting starts, which we prioritize content creation. There was a lot of content creation done in this experience. I can actually even bring some more here. But just to get an idea, we wanted to have different avatars that were fully. Give me 1 second. Let me just get a few models as well, just to show. These are just some previews here, in terms of like work in progress previews, so you can kind of see the level of quality of these different elements. But we had 4 different avatars with full clothes. We had a table full of traditional food. We had a bunch of items like teepees and different elements that were being created. So it's a lot of work here on the content side. But you kind of see the level of quality that we're aiming for. So what's amazing about the Vision Pro is the level of the amount of rendering power that the Vision Pro has. And we can actually create these really, really realistic avatars. The clothing looks amazing. You can actually feel the cloth type. There's a lot of details here on the headband. We were going for hyper-realism. And this avatar is actually based, it's not a random person, it's actually based off of a photograph of one of the signing people of Treaty 8. So the treaties of Canada are alliances or contracts between the First Nations of Canada and the Crown of England. We're talking back in the day, even before the Canada as a country existed. And there was groups from the indigenous communities that were actually the signing people. And this is actually one of the a full digital replica, or digital twin of one of the signings, the original signing members of the Treaty 8, which is part of Alberta. So a very powerful story here, and we wanted to really capture the essence of this important person in the history of Canada. And then maybe some other elements here, how Sage would potentially look as well. This is a tool called Sketch 5. It was really just to kind of show progress here. You're going to see how these 3D models look. The level of detail also, like we really were striving for world-class quality, and you can kind of see here how we could kind of like, and having this in your physical environment through a Vision Pro is very powerful. So to be able to actually pick this up and place it in your space. What else do we have that's worth showing? Well, the traditional female, that was pretty powerful as well. Loading. There you go. You can kind of see that the detail in the clothing is amazing. The detail of the materials, how each piece ornament has its specific colors. And this is super high quality, but also optimized for XR. So that's another thing, is that in renderings, in architect renderings and that kind of stuff, that's not real time. So those are just like photos. This is rendered in real time. So 60 times per second. This has to be, this avatar has to be rendered. Or even more, I think it's 72 on the Vision Pro. So we needed to make sure that this was looking world-class quality, but also super optimized for the Vision Pro. And these were going to be fully animated characters that were going to be available inside of the actual application. And let me just show the TP, and then I think we can move on. You're going to see that the TP also, the material, the TP, the design, all of this is super, super accurate in terms of, this is all done with subject matter experts, which were the elders. But yeah, it's great. And what we're doing here, that the reason why I also like archiving is the way that this knowledge and these objects that are of key importance for and key meaning to the people of Cree. This is more than just a tent. This represents a lot of meaningful things to the and symbol. It's a very powerful symbol for the people of Cree. And the only way that's currently digitized, or not even digitized, archived, is through photos, maybe some videos. And this is the first time that we're actually creating fully 3D archives of these different objects. And the best and most powerful way, here I'm just showing kind of like a 3D render, but the most powerful way to actually be able to access this format of content and knowledge is through spatial computing. So being able to walk inside of this, be able to see it here with me, be able to place it at full scale inside of my environment, actually feel the massive scale that this has, is the best medium to actually experience it. So it's all about, we're creating a library. The idea is to create a library of all these different elements into one space, which was this immersive application. So you can kind of see some behind the scenes and how kind of the aperture designs work. So there's a lot of work that was going into there. And then in parallel is the coding side. So developing Vision Pro applications, there's three main verticals. We have product design, which was done at the beginning, which is defining ideas and communicating them and designing interfaces and designing products. Then we have content creation, which is all the 3D content, animations, texturing, everything has to do with visual elements and 3D visual content. And then the final vertical is in software engineering. It's hard to build these experiences. You need a program. It's engineering work to actually translate these these ideas into fully working apps. So that was kind of the next step. We would actually build all of this content. Kind of see a few behind the scenes here in terms of elements that were being built in Unity, and then kind of polishing. So here you kind of see a video of testing. This is just to kind of see how it works. The main menu experience, this is in beta phase. So I'm kind of just doing a talk through, but you can kind of see it. At one point, I click start. That transitions out. The effect of the portal goes in, boom, and now we're there. So this is actually a screen recording of the application. So you can see this world that we created. The avatar welcomes you to the experience. Let's see if I can fast forward this a bit. You kind of see the experience from different angles. And at one point, I actually walk into the space where I put it in full screen. I'm doing kind of like a design review here. You kind of see how the menus work. I select. We also we're going for that. Now I'm in full immersive. So now I'm fully in VR here in the space. Oops. You can also feel kind of the look and feel of the environment, of the background scene. It feels a lot kind of like that tone of that initial screen that we had. The initial concept was that idea of the sunset, warmth of the history. So the idea is to like really able to feel what it felt to be inside of an afternoon in northern Alberta, 300 years ago potentially. That was kind of the feeling that we were trying to accomplish here. Then we had, let me slow down a bit. For example, heritage, how the table is presented with all these different elements to kind of see this idea. Gastronomy, this is a pretty amazing one. You can actually walk up and grab any of these different elements. Not sure if I do actual testing there. And all of this was kind of the history. And then we also wanted to showcase the different guides. And then we actually wanted to showcase today. And this would be like a modern day cabin in Alberta. So the idea was to kind of, what would this same location, 2025, 2026, look like? And this is kind of the idea, and how a person similar to the original signing would potentially dress today. So this is kind of like modern in clothing, interior that would be plausible for a modern day, like the table, all of the same experience of how we were interacting in the past. How would that translate to today was kind of this specific challenge. And let me see if I jump into any other item. There's a module kind of like in terms of the different components of the library. We can have some additional information. There's also another interesting thing is that we recreated an AI voice, like an 11 lamps custom voice based on voices of the elders, also to be able to tell any story with that dialect, with that not dialect, but with that accent or that way of speaking, which I thought was also powerful. And basically, we have a collection of all these different elements that are read to you, that are spoken to you by the elders. So it's kind of the idea here. And yeah, that's kind of like a preview of the app. And the app has just gone into soft launch, which is available for download on the App Store. So if anyone has an Apple Vision Pro, feel free to, let me see if I can open a link to that. Feel free to download the 3D Story experience. It's soft launch, so it's available for the people who are in the know. But it would be great to get feedback, and we are planning on pushing additional updates. So now we're doing like a soft launch to go into like an open beta, so people can test it out. We can get feedback, and we can continue polishing and growing this library. Kind of see how the UIs ended up looking. Not sure if there's a way to scale this up a bit. But this is how the actual UIs end up designing. So you have different elements, and you can kind of see how from the original idea and concept, how we ended up developing the application. And yeah, and that's kind of a recap on the process, just kind of recap what we went through. We've gone from an original concept or vision of what we wanted to do with this technology, which was this idea of spatial archiving, and the whole development process that goes into going from an idea, a vision, even more of an idea on how, a purpose, I think is the best word, or it could be presented as like a problem to solve, which the problem was this knowledge is disappearing, how can we archive it? But I also feel it's a vision on this is the direction at which we want to start with. So it all started being able to tell the story and archive the story in the digital medium. And from there, how we kind of started to break down these different components. We created a concept of the idea we had. We designed a UI UX, like a product design of how this would actually look as a product. We developed different prototypes to understand what can work and what doesn't work, and what we need to mitigate and test early before we actually do it in the middle of development. The full content creation process, being able to digitize all of these experiences. This is a mixture between handmade 3D content based on images, and if there are scans, we can also, we used a few scans to streamline the process, so there's very different techniques. We continued with the implementation, so bringing all that content and that product and coding that into an actual application. Testing and polishing, and there's a lot of back and forth here. And finally, publishing the app, which is what we just done. And this is available in open beta. Anyone with a Vision Pro app, Vision Pro can actually download this and test it out. And I feel like what's powerful about this technology, I feel, is that we're at the early stages of spatial computing as an idea. I feel that this last decade, at least since we've been in the industry, I think there's been so much innovation. Like, people forget the progress that we've gone from a Kickstarter to Apple defining the future of their whole computing platform to spatial computing. Meta literally rebranding from Facebook, from a social media platform, to an immersive technology company with their Quest. Google's entering the market with Android XR. So that all of big tech is fully doubling down on this technology. And I feel that we're at the beginning of a next generation of this technology. The same way that when mobile started, there's many different key pieces. So the mobile generation, which I feel like we're at the end of the cycle now, started not just by the smartphone, the iPhone, which, yes, it was kind of the catalysis, but there were so many different key pieces of technology that actually made the mobile generation, which has been kind of these last, since 2007. And there's so many different items. First, social media was a key vertical in terms of what actually became the mobile generation. 4G network, which allowed to actually be able to access multimedia content on your phone anywhere, not only in your home with Wi-Fi. So this idea of I'm connected at all time was very powerful. The smartphone as a medium was very powerful. Cloud computing, which maybe seem fringe, but basically cloud computing enabled small startups to access the scale of big companies. So how these small teams behind Instagram, behind YouTube, those small startups access an infrastructure that was impossible to access before cloud computing. So it's an extremely other powerful technology. So I think the insight here is how the previous technology generation was not a combination of many different key verticals of technology that kind of fused together into what has been happening these last 15 years in terms of our connectivity at all times, social media, our presence online, the amount of time we spend on computers, how we work. Also, I would say that COVID would add a bit of an ingredient there in the sense that at one point everyone was working digitally, fully digitally. So there was a bunch of mixture that kind of built the last 15 years of technology innovation and basically how the world works. And I feel that we're at the start of a next generation. So it feels like 2007, 2008 again, 2009, where there's a lot of key pieces. We have Gen AI, we have spatial computing, we have all these different key things happening in terms of technology that people are kind of starting to figure out how they work and what they're for and how they're going to. And I feel that over the next 10 years, we're going to start to see an explosive amount of innovation when all these technologies fuse together into what will be the next 15 years of innovation, which I'm pretty excited about. And with that, will be wrapping up the meeting. If anyone has any questions, it would be great to dive into any questions. And if not, it was great to be able to tell this story of how we built this application. If you want to check out any other info, feel free to visit us on our website. Feel free to reach out via LinkedIn, and you can always. One second. It's taking longer than usual. Okay, no worries. You can. This might. Oh, there we go. Now we're good. And feel free to visit us on our website. You can subscribe to our newsletter to kind of be in the loop in terms of what we're building and kind of see some of the projects that we have here. Kind of see this one also in more detail. If you want to check out a bit of more information about this project, I'll link to the App Store. And also, I invite everyone who wants to dive more into this space to visit our blog, which we have full in-depth guides on these different topics. So, for example, we have a full in-depth guide on spatial computing. What is spatial computing? The differences between virtual reality, augmented reality, what is mixed reality, that people are going to talk about mixed reality as well, which the Vision Pro is a type of mixed reality experience. This idea of being able to, it's a spectrum of the idea of like fully digital experiences and fully physical, and this idea of having a spectrum between this is kind of what the term mixed reality. We also talk a little bit about the metaverse, also in terms of kind of how people start to think about the metaverse and what it kind of means today. The different hardware devices. This is also worth seeing. New devices that are launching. So there's a bunch of knowledge here. Feel free to go through this in detail. This really covers everything you need to know about spatial computing. And then we have one on virtual reality and augmented reality as well. These are very specific technologies, how they work as well. Kind of really dive into the details, the history of how we started. I personally started working in the space. This was in 2014. It's kind of when I got started, at least professionally in the space. And we were developing software for this headset. So this is a long time ago. And since then, it's been crazy the amount of improvement and progress that this industry has had, and kind of today's equipment and kind of how the Vision Pro works, which is also pretty interesting. Well, some of the main applications today. The 3D story, which is a powerful use case. Fitness is also a really interesting use case. Some of the main concerns here. And kind of a vision of the future of the technology. And then we have one for augmented as well. So I feel free to anyone to kind of dive into the details. The history of AR is really interesting, which really goes back a long time. And really, it's really about understanding kind of where we're going, where this technology is today, and where we're going, and how can we prepare for the future. So I think it's everyone's in understanding of this is inevitable. That's kind of the main platform for computing in the near future. The question is how we get there, and the question is who's going to get us to there. And I feel that this space is open to builders, and we want everyone to, the more builders, the better. So the more people that can join the space, join the industry, and really start to build in one of these key three verticals, which could be, here's kind of the process as well, similar to what we went over. But the three verticals are the product design, 3D content creation, or software development. It's kind of like the three verticals that enable this technology in terms of the skill sets. So it's really choosing which one of those three wants to focus on. I personally come from the engineering side, so software development is I came from one of those verticals. But it's important to really be thrive in one of these three, and then potentially you can explore other management. There's so many other different roles that happen, but the importance of being an expert in one of these three roles to be able to really understand and add value and understand how this space works to be able to build and add value. And kind of Apple's evolution of, the original Macintosh, which kind of set the stage for the personal computer, and that was a 15-year revolution. Then, the Apple launched kind of the iPhone, which set the stage for the 15 years of innovation. Kind of where we're now is Apple launching the Vision Pro, which is setting the stage for the next 15 years of innovation. So it's exciting. Okay, and that covers my talk now. Any questions would be great, and if not, we'll see each other on LinkedIn. Raquel, I'm not sure if you have any other insights.
Yeah, no, my God, thank you so much. This was a fantastic demo. I think everyone's in the chat very surprised about the detail you guys are getting. I think it's really important work preserving cultural history. And yeah, it's really cool to see how far VR has come, and it's awesome that you've been in the space so long. I'm also a software engineer, but I don't do anything that cool, so kind of jealous. I literally remember when I was a kid, I remember when that first Google Cardboard VR headset came out. Mm-hmm. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Or AR with Pokemon Go. So I definitely think it's the future, and excited to see where more people can take it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah, we have a lot of questions actually. So let's just power through them. The first one, I went all the way back to the top. So we'll go through each one. The first one is about, do you think that the storage for digital archive will become larger than an actual computer? Or I guess maybe how can we store these things?
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah.
Do you think that the storage will actually become an actual computer at some point? That's a good question. I feel that the Moore's law, in terms of the amount of the progress in compute and storage, is growing just so fast that I'm not sure if we have the capacity to generate so much content more than the actual content that's available to store. So I wouldn't say that storage is an actual challenge at the moment. But that's an interesting question. So it's I haven't been really thinking about that. But maybe I think a bigger challenge, I think more in terms of storage, is AI. I see it more as kind of we just unlocked a way to generate infinite amount of content that before humans had to manually create that content. So I would say it's more to thinking of, still, this is a very artisanal process that we're doing, which I feel you can feel the humanity behind these types of experiences. I'm curious how over the next decade, the content creation part will change with Gen AI and additional technology. So I'm curious. That's a good question.
Yeah, really good question. Thank you. Next question. How can we preserve the authenticity of cultural heritage archives while allowing for reinterpretation through digital mediums?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like that's a really, really interesting insight. I feel one of the challenges that we had, at least, was we are not, this idea of subject matter experts in culture. I feel that there are groups of people that have really, you can't learn culture. It's very hard to learn culture. It's very hard to understand culture. Myself, I'm originally from Uruguay, from South America, and there's so many cultural elements. we drink this tea called mate, which like
I
messy
love
drinks.
mate.
Yeah, so like we're a messy culture. Like your Argentina are very similar, but they're like all these different symbols that it's very hard to understand them if you didn't grow up. It's all about, and it's about that experience of childhood growth, that when you actually start to understand the world, you see it through a specific experience that's very hard to, once you grow up, learn that again. So I feel that it is very hard to share that culture, and what we tried to do here was with the elders of the people of Cree of Canada, work with them to really try to understand and capture. We're trying to tell their story. We're just the interpreters of that knowledge. But yeah, the question is, now it's very hard to build these types of experiences, and it's important that initiatives are green, so that people actually want to do this now, especially when certain cultures are starting to, one of the things that globalization has, which has many different good things, but one of the challenges that it does have is that it creates like a universal culture around the whole world, which is great because we understand each other better. But sometimes people start losing their original cultures, and so people start to listen to the same music in the world. People start to listen, like the sources of where people consume in the world all end up being the same. I think the United States has a particular interesting position because they export a lot of culture in the world. Like many people watch Hollywood movies, most people listen to American songs. So I feel that other parts of the world might be having a harder challenge to exporting their culture, in the sense of these stories, these objects of meaning being able to be stored. So we'll see. I mean, I think it's generational, so it's slow change, but it happens all at once. And I feel that the people of Cree will realize that their story might not survive a few generations more, and the importance of being able to archive that was kind of the idea.
Wow, that was a really good question, a really good answer. Yeah, I think,
Good question.
yeah, that's really good. It's also, yeah, it's crazy how like with globalization, we all kind of are consuming the same stuff, and sometimes we lose that nuance in our own cultures. And I think it's great that they were able to recognize that and want to do this archival work, and then think about ways like we can use this kind of technology to then also maybe export, or people can use it to spread more knowledge about their cultures and not lose that, and also spread it more. Yeah, really cool work. One question about how do you see it affecting healthcare?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are working a lot in healthcare, so we have many things going on in the healthcare space. The only public project that we can talk about is one that's called the Cardiac Compass. It's on our website if you guys want to check it out. That is the challenge that Cardiac Compass XR is trying to solve for is it's specific for the pharma industry, which is the interesting part is the more a person understands their condition, be it diabetes, be it high blood pressure, like there's so many different, this is focused on cardiovascular, but the core insight is the more that you understand what's going on in your body, the more you will take care of your health. So that's kind of the insight. So the more, there's different risk factors for all these items. Like if you smoke, if you drink alcohol, all these different lifestyle choices affect your health. And the insight that we're working on, so the core thesis that we're working on is, can spatial computing help to not superficially learn, but deeply learn these different how your body works with regards to these different lifestyle choices? And if that is true, we might be able to improve overall health with being able to tell better stories. And there's no more powerful medium to tell stories than spatial computing, being fully immersed in these spaces. So that's it's a great use case. We are working currently on a great project there, which is on a website called Cardiac Compass XR. And I am very excited about healthcare. I think healthcare is one of the industries that is more open to innovation. And I feel that there's a lot of work being done there. And I feel that people are ever more conscious in terms of their health today. I think that's one of the great things that today, I think, compared to when I was a kid, health is a much top of mind topic. And I feel that people are taking that seriously, and there's a lot of innovation in that space. So we're very excited about healthcare.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think even with like wearables, like I have like a smart ring, I feel like this is becoming more and more like of a thing. So maybe even pairing like wearables with VR and like, merging your data, that would be really cool. Lots of questions. Another one. That's a nice one. What is the thing you enjoy the most about your job?
Oof, that's an interesting one. I have a deep passion for creating and building things, and I feel that's one of the most the highest level. At least from my experience of the human experience, is when the human is fully immersed in the flow state of and creating things. So I feel that there's no higher state of being, at least from my experience, of that the state of flow, which is a concept of doing hard things, but having progress doing hard things, and being able to create and build things. So I would say that the part I most enjoy is building things, and building new things, like things in spatial computing. I think that it's an amazing industry because it's so at the forefront of innovation at the whole global scale, that it's just amazing to be able to work on these amazing projects and really be able to push this technology forward, and kind of, I feel, set the stage and the foundation to the next 15 years or 20 years or 100 years in the space. I feel are being built now. So being able to participate in kind of this, in the forefront of this industry, is extremely satisfying.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so exciting. Thanks for that question. That was a really good one. Another one. As of now, is accessibility to spatial archives limited to institutions with advanced technical resources?
Yep. That's a good question. I feel accessibility at this point is a challenge. So I feel that the challenge is that the Vision Pro costs $4,000, which is very low accessible. What I feel, at least now, is I feel that it will happen, it's inevitable that everyone will have some way of interacting with spatial content in the future. I feel at this early phase it really is for a smaller segment of, which is unfortunate. But what I'm pretty excited about is that all of the work done now will be available in the future. So I feel that we are building the foundation for this to actually be accessible in the future. So now it's available in Canada in different institutions, and it's publicly available, so anyone in the world can access the experience if you have a Vision Pro, which unfortunately not too many people have, because of price point accessibility. But I'm hoping that this is Gen 1, the same way that not everyone had an iPhone in 2007, but not everyone, but many people started to have access to an iPhone when it was iPhone 5 or 4. I got in iPhone 4, but iPhone 5, iPhone 6, that part when it started to hit mass. So I'm expecting that the Apple Vision Pro 4 or 5 or 6 will be just a pair of glasses, like you have, just any pair of glasses that you would be able to access all of these experiences. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. Like generation 4, 5, 6 will be when it starts to hit global mass. So that's unfortunate, but I think we're on track. We're making progress.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's a really good question because most people definitely don't have that. But it'll be cool to see how that kind of technology becomes more accessible, and we're definitely on the way with like smart glasses and stuff. We have like 1 minute left, so I will take one more question. This person asks, what are some of the challenges you noticed when you first started spatial computing for archiving?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say the product design was the hardest part. Like, what does it even mean to archive? Like, each medium has a different idea of what archiving actually means. Like, archiving goes all the way back to the ancient libraries of the ancient world, where writing was maybe the first. You could argue that storytelling from generation to generation was the first archive, as the medium of a story that you can remember and share through generations. Maybe was the first archive. Then we had wording, so actually written language, where you could that archived ideas from person to person, from generation across time. And then I think in the last 200 years or even 100 years, there's been so much innovation, from photography to film to voice, to be able to archive sound. So then the whole digital revolution that started happening really at scale in the 90s. And I feel that all of this, and multimedia, so like what has been happening these last 15 years. And what I feel is that now it's like literally when the camera was invented, or like it's a new medium. So it's as powerful as the camera or as written text, that we're starting to digitize physically, like reality experiences. Like I felt this, I was here, like that idea of being able to like an actual experiential experience, be able to store that, to archive that, I feel is one of the most exciting parts of this technology, and how we apply that is really interesting. So I feel like this is cultural archiving. So we're trying to tell the story of these people, in this medium, to be able to feel like you're there. Like what did it feel like to be in northern Alberta 300 years ago? Like no photo will allow you to live that. You have to actually be standing in that space, hearing the sounds, seeing things, looking at the distance, like the way that humans perceive reality. How can we digitize that experience? And I'm pretty excited about spatial computing being able to do that. I just feel like we've discovered a new genre, a new medium of archiving, reality, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's definitely real. Like it's different from reading something, from watching something, to then like be fully immersed and like almost literally feeling like you're in it and like
Yeah,
like
embodied. I think that's the most powerful, because immersion is a bit more complex, the concept, because you could potentially be immersed watching a movie in the sense that you forget where you are. Like in a great movie, like you forget that you're in your couch, you're in that experience. That is still immersion. This is interesting because it is immersion, but it also is a concept which is embodiment. At no time watching a movie, you are actually feel that you're part of that world. You're fully in, but you're an observer. And I think a better word than immersion is embodiment, that you are there. Your persona, yourself is in that experience, which is, I think, a new concept that previously was not actually possible.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's definitely more like embodiment, and that's what I think makes it so magical and like I think impactful for sure. Cool. Thank you guys so much for the questions. Thank you, Horacio, for joining us and having that awesome presentation. I put the link to your studio's website in the comments as well. So everyone, please check it out. It looks like it has also a lot of good resources to learn more about VR, AR, the history of the technology, and the stuff that they're working on over there at Treeview. So thank you guys so much for joining. We'll be back in September with some more sessions. And yeah, have a good rest of your week. Thank you, Horacio.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.